Good morning. It is the 2nd of December. So we're into the December Christmas holiday period. If you're working towards that, I'm sure you're waiting for the results of those campaigns to reach their full fruition. But I'm sure you're already looking forward to next year as well. As usual, here in the Public Relations podcast, I'm going to give 2 episodes this week of PRBites. And I've got stuff about how to get journalists to pay more attention to you by creating insider information, and I will tell you how anyone can actually do it. I've got a quick tip for you from Kamal from To Consult in Mumbai. We're having a quick look at the Jaguar campaign, the car Jaguar campaign, whereby they've come up with this new marketing and advertising campaign, and why I think it just completely misses the mark from the point of view of what we need in the new era of marketing. Also talking about marketing to Gen Z as well. And of course, rounding up with our usual comms conundrum. And this week's one, I feel that it is blindingly obvious which one to pick. But I'm always really interested in hearing what you think about these ones. So do let me know. You can always reach out to me, of course, on LinkedIn. In the usual place, just search for me, Richard Midson, Midson, Midson. I love hearing from you. It's always so much fun to hear from people. So let's get started with today. And what I'm going to talk about in this one is just one story, a quick win, and Gen Z, and then we'll do the other stuff on Thursday just to keep these things really tight. Let me start off with a quick win. If you're having trouble changing long-standing habits for a campaign, here's Kamal last tip from To Consult in Mumbai. She says, don't compete with established habits. If people have a really ingrained habit, find a new occasion for your product to fit into people's lives. Find a new opportunity. Kamal, for example, targeted a new 5 to 7 p.m. slot for a campaign that she was doing about tea, creating, this was a particular Swedish tea, creating a new sort of high tea experience, adding to people's days rather than trying to replace India's beloved morning chai, which there was no way that it was going to have any ability to change the habits of moving from chai to Swedish tea. So by adding it as a new thing, by making a whole new experience you can enjoy, she had far more chance of achieving success with that. Okay, what about Gen Z? Well, there was an interesting article that I found on Forbes, and I put the link in the newsletter that you can have a look at there. I think it's Jeff Froome. Hopefully I got that right. But check the newsletter and you will find a link to it. But he made some really interesting points, and he studies marketing basically to younger demographics. And the ones that kind of stood out for me were these. The first one was that Gen Z's news consumptions are different from older demographics. So as usual, you want to know these things if you're trying to target a specific demographic. But people primarily use social media platforms such as TikTok and YouTube for news and for their general day-to-day information rather than traditional outlets or even Google. So rather than wondering what's going on in the world of politics, what matters to them is what this influencer is saying or what this article is about, or it could be history, or it could be poetry, or it could be music. That's the stuff that interests them. So they're picking their own news agenda by going on these platforms and finding stuff. And of course, what matters to us is that we need to know where they are so that we can actually reach them. There's a big shift away from traditional institutions. They are deeply skeptical and suspicious of large corporations and institutions, and they don't trust them. He talks a bit about government, but just the general lack of trust in big institutions. And he's saying that Gen Z clearly want authenticity and transparency from brands and rejects the feeling of things that are over-polished or insincere. And of course, we know that most comms, from corporate level comms, is often done in this way. And Gen Z are just not taking it in. So it's kind of almost pointless doing it. The next one, which I thought was quite interesting, was that they value experiential over material. And what that means is that they're not so much interested in a particular product, purchasing a product. They want an experience from it. And so once again, we're moving away from that whole thing of having just a marketing campaign where we say this is good or buy this or live the dream by using our product to something that takes them on a journey. They want to experience something. Then there was one I did disagree with, which was that he was making a point about the fact that Gen Z demand that organizations have a political perspective on things, and it's no longer acceptable to not to. But it's interesting because there's been such a big movement now of companies to move away from that after some of the controversies of the past couple of years to try and be neutral again. So I'm not sure whether that's because this was research gained a couple of years ago or whatever, but just to sum up, my takings away from that article, as you hear me talking about all the time with PR-led marketing, it's about understanding your audience. and understanding what that resonates with them. A PR-driven strategy with authentic storytelling at its heart is going to better align with how Gen Z wants to engage with brands than a lot of traditional marketing. Anyway, as I say, I put the link into the newsletter this week that you can have a look at. I will talk about the Jaguar cars story actually on Thursday because I've got a few more thoughts. I just want to read a few more bits before I talk about that. But let me get to the main thing I did actually want to talk about today. And that is the topic of why insider information beats announcements in PR. So, let me give you an example, okay? So imagine a local brewery trying to promote its new organic beer. So instead of just announcing the launch of a new beer, which, gosh, we've had so many of these, they expose a brewing industry issue. And let's say that the issue is big corporations are squeezing out small organic farms. They share compelling insider data and stories from local farmers based across the country, positioning themselves as advocates for sustainability. Now, it's this insider information, this data, and these inside quotes from people involved in this that you couldn't generally hear about that grabs journalists and influence attention. And they then come knocking on your door to get this story and to talk about your brewery. And of course, your case study is the example of your new beer. Here's the problem, right? Many PR pitches rely on dull announcements. New product launches, we see them all the time, sales or corporate updates. They fail to excite anyone beyond the trade media or any kind of media that relies on just republishing announcements. Because these pitches often feel like disguised advertising because they often are. But here's something journalists, influencers, and the public crave. They crave unique behind-the-scenes insights. And when you share insider information, so data, niche angles, or unique narratives, you offer these content creators and the public something valuable to share with their audience or with their friends. It transforms you from a source of press releases into a trusted insider. And that's a huge difference from the point of view of a journalist or content creator, because no longer are they going to be going, oh, gosh, it's that person pestering me again. They're going to be the ones calling you. So to kind of sum that up, and I'll give you a couple of points on how you can approach this in a moment, by having insider information becomes your currency like money, and you can spend it to buy favours and access. But is it worth putting in any effort to try and find insider information, in quotes? I'm doing air quotes again that you can't see because it's a podcast. Well, what if you do a bit of insider research or give a bit of insider facts and figures that this announcement, this dull announcement about a new beer coming out, was suddenly discussed on every platform all over the country for free? Let's think about how you can do this. How can you line up your next pitch to be full of insider information and insider insights rather than just being yet another announcement press release? There's a bunch of ways of doing this, but I'll just cover 3 here in the podcast. The first one is that you want to obviously identify your insider information. And you can often find this stuff inside your own organization. So what knowledge do you take for granted that others don't know? Right? What sort of facts and figures, what sort of processes, what sort of pain points do you understand? Every single organization has its own unique perspective on things because they've all gone on different journeys. So what is unique about your insights or your customer insights or your process insights that other people don't know and isn't common knowledge? Is there a unique process? Is there a quirky fact or a data point about your product or industry? Ideally, a set of bits of data. Do you have a particular insight into your industry whereby things are going to be different? We've talked about trends before, but whereby you've got data or something that really backs up a trend or even a counter trend to that. What is this information that someone can't just get by Googling that you have access to? Could you, for example, challenge a common assumption or reveal new trends based on data that only you have? So what insider information do you have access to? And I'm not talking about giving away company secrets or copyright stuff like that. I just mean the kind of things that if it does get out, it's going to help your campaign and get attention for you. So then step 2 is about collecting supporting data and stories around that. So, this might mean conducting quick surveys or digging into customer feedback to find this stuff. Interviewing industry experts, colleagues, other companies, or even, campaign groups for fresh perspectives, building this stuff together. You're doing the work of a journalist here, but you're compiling together these bits of evidence that back this up, this insider information. Creating comparisons or sort of visual data even that highlight your insider insights. So, for example, the beer brand could survey other brewers about the annoying hidden costs of regulation that benefit big brewers but penalise smaller ones when it comes to organic beer. And then what other industry experts could support your point of view in your industry. So, for example, a skincare brand could work with dermatologists to scientifically explain how their products combat stress-related skin issues. I'm no dermatologist, but you get the point. So there's a bunch of ways of actually finding this insider information. And then, of course, you want to be pitching it in that way. You want to be going on that hook rather than just saying, Joe Blogg's Brewery announces a new beer. Make it clear that you've got more insider information from people that isn't generally out there that you are happy to share. Now, there's a lot more you could say about this. And what I've done is, like I was saying in the survey, when people said, is there any more educational material you can provide for stuff like this? So that's exactly what I've done. I've already written a module where I've compiled a bunch more steps on this and a bunch more insights and examples, which is going to become part of the Public Relations podcast, sort of membership or premium, I haven't decided what it's called yet, that I will talk about soon. So all this stuff, I've got a lot more on it, but I hope these steps are useful. The key point is get some insider information. Say you've got insider information, and that's going to give you far more chance of getting journalists, content creators, and whoever to speak to you. As I said at the beginning, information is currency, and by having inside information, you can use that to buy access and buy favours. Okay, that's it for Tuesday. I hope you found that interesting. If you do have any questions or if you any comments, then don't forget, of course, you can reach out to me on LinkedIn. It is Richard Midson, Midson. And also, of course, if you know anyone else that might like to listen to this podcast, please do let them know about it as well. One of the problems with the platforms that you put things on now is that they tend to just simply promote celebrity podcasts rather than things that are a bit more useful, and hopefully this is useful. And if you find it useful, please do let colleagues or friends or anyone that you know that might be interested in it the details so that they can listen into it as well. That's it for the moment. I will be back on Thursday while I have this week's Comms Conundrum, plus I'll be discussing that Jaguar story as well. In the meantime, have a good week, and I will speak to you then.